I'm not panicked. I have a high level of attention with a mild sprinkle of concern.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest, craziest sport on planet Earth. Plenty of Pac-12 chatter. Oregon State is maybe my favorite over bet in all of college football. For their record, I'll tell you why. And should we buy into Texas A&M? I'm kind of the king of buying into teams people don't like buying into, so why the heck not? That's all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Do you remember that time weeks ago when the Pac-12 made a beautifully great announcement, a momentum shifter in which CBS was announced as their primary media rights, or at least a primary media rights partner starting in 2026. I remember that time. I was there. I talked about it on the show, and it was a great thing to see. You're going to get probably some solid money, not a top concern, but a non-zero benefit for these schools to get. Mostly, though, you're going to get exposure, relevance, credibility. These are things you have to fight for a little at a time. One thing throughout the Pac-12's downfall is, yes, George Kliavkoff accelerated things with the media rights negotiations, not keeping USC and UCLA in the fold. That all was a downward spiral. It didn't start there. Each action that longtime Pac-12 fans saw for a long time that ultimately led to the league's downfall, RIP, was a little here, a little there, a mistake here, a mistake there. And then you added it up after 10, 15 years and went, boy, kind of looks like they were making a decade's worth of mistakes, and it finally caught up to them. Yeah, it did. It did. I remember I was there having these conversations with people about the ridiculous leadership of Larry Scott, and we all used to say, those chickens are going to come home to roost eventually, and they did, of course, in the worst way. So you're in that space right now, if you're Teresa Gold, the Pac-12 commissioner, where each decision you're making at this point in time on its own isn't making or breaking the league. The ramifications are going to be felt in a considerable way, one way or the other, for better or worse, years down the line. And you want to do as many things right as you possibly can. So the CBS announcement was good. Since then, empty, quiet, nothing. I'm not panicking. I want to make that very, very clear. I'm just kind of wondering, and I'm trying not to get overly I'm trying not to have flashbacks to 2 years ago. I'm trying not to think back to when we were waiting and wait, because you do have one partner announced, and it's a good starting point. Now, what's been reported is the CW is likely going to be involved. Maybe Turner would be involved. Getting Turner involved and having your games air on TNT and TBS would be great. I think that would be a rather exceptional outcome for the Pac-12 in this media rights space. They've got a lot of things to figure out. John Canzano reported that among the things they're discussing is officiating. That could use some work. If you figure out a great solution that's applicable to the rest of college football, why don't you give the other conference commissioners a call and say, hey, we fixed this. You might want to try it this way, because we're just not that far away from that wonderful time of year where we scream at the guys who wear black and white on the field and can't get basic pass interference calls correct. But when I think about what needs to happen, for the Pac-12, finding quality partners is important. No doubt about it. Finding money is important. But finding quality broadcasts matters, I think, way more than the money at this point in time. So the CW last year, they've picked up some ACC games as well, so they're familiar with it. If any of you watched a CW production of the Pac-12 last year, not going to sit here and pretend like we were watching Sunday Night Football, are we? It was serviceable. It was fine. Didn't look like the highest quality production you could find. When you're battling for credibility and trying to stake your claim as, hey, our conference champ is better than everybody else, one decision like that doesn't make or break the league. But you add them up over time and you can look back and go, that was a contributing factor to put us in a spot where we're in now, where we don't want to be. So I think the money does matter. I do think the quality of the broadcasts that ultimately get delivered to fans also matters a pretty solid amount. And maybe I'm biased because I'm a play-by-play announcer and I do a lot of TV broadcasts and I care a great deal about the quality of product that we put out there, myself and the rest of the people involved with the broadcast. Maybe I'm biased in that sense. I don't think that I'm totally crazy. And the Pac-12 was fighting a bunch of small battles. And here's the other reason that I think those sorts of things matter and why I'm not panicked, but paying attention and wanting to not move into worry mode about what the money could be and what the exposure could look like or what all these little details and how the conference will operate. I don't think long term you're staying at 8 members. You might for the 5-year grant to rights, but there have been reports they might try to go get another football school. I think another football school makes sense. Well, you got to have something good to sell them on. The 5 Mountain West schools that came to join Oregon State and Washington State are wanting to associate with the Beavs and the Cougs under the Pac-12 brand. Texas State is wanting to upgrade from the Sun Belt. They've done that. Anybody else that you're going to get into the league that obviously isn't already there, you have to give them something beyond potential superior playoff access, which I do believe can exist. You need to be able to make the strongest pitch you can. So if you want to be able to go out and get a football-only affiliate member of Memphis or UTSA or North Texas or Rice or whoever it would be, you've got to be able to go out there and put your best foot forward. You can't go out and say, yeah, we got this broadcast deal. It's not worth this as much as we thought, and the quality's a little iffy, and we're going to be working out a lot of kinks. That can be a point where it tips the scale. It's not the bulk. It's not the cake. It might be the icing, though. Do you want to eat a piece of cake that doesn't have any icing on it? Some of you are only there for the icing, and you just want to eat it straight out the jar. I'm not one of those people. You got to blend those two things together. Make a holistic, quality, solid offer. So there's no announcement expected imminently, as in within the next 24 to 72 hours. But before the season starts, I think you want to have some clarity on this front. You do not want to put your backs up against the wall. You don't want to be fighting the shot clock on finding the rest of your media deal, figuring out how much it is worth, and examining whether or not you can go out and add a 9th football member to your league, which I think would be a good, worthwhile endeavor to give you 8 conference games every year. It'd probably be a quality matchup depending on who you add. It might make some regional sense to ease the travel burden of a league that is at the very least a little bit tougher, but not brutally tough with the travel beyond Texas State. I think there's a real advantage there, and it's just something to keep an eye on here on a Friday. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. We're staying in the good old Pac-12 because it's G5 Friday. Oregon State, over 6.5 wins. Oh, yeah. First, this episode brought to you by Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether it's workouts, long days on campus, or focused to get through back-to-back classes, or if you're on the golf course, hydration is where it all starts, and that is where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven fast hydration product. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. When I'm out on the golf course, guys, I have to stay hydrated at all times. So a product like Drip Drop is perfect because you want to get it fast. Once you get dehydrated, your muscles get a little tired. It's harder to swing consistently. It's just nothing about it is good. So you make sure you go check them out and get the hydration you need. Right now, Drip Drop's offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Check them out at dripdrop.com. Well, speaking of the Pac-12, it is G5 Friday here at Locked On College Football, which means we're going through a record prediction for at least one Group of 5 team. Regrettably, that does involve Oregon State now, but Carter Bahns of CBS Sports is here to discuss. Nobody else I would discuss Oregon State stuff with. It would be sacrilegious, especially for those of you who have been with me for a very, very long time here on this channel, to not discuss it with Carter. And I want to start with this, Carter with the Beavs. I expect him to be better, not just because they brought in Malik Murphy, who was one of the top transfer quarterbacks to move in the country. I thought he was going to wind up somewhere like Auburn, and he winds up at Oregon State. It's a phenomenal get for the Beavs. There is a way, technically speaking, for them to make the playoff, right? I think it's just the one way, but there's a way.
Yeah, it's going undefeated, right?
Yeah, that's the way.
Or 11-1 with a loss to Oregon, a la Boise State.
It'd be close. I think in a 12 team, that would warrant serious consideration. Yeah. Most of you probably don't have Oregon State's schedule memorized. That is, of course, what we are here to do, to tell you who they play. They open with an ACC team in Cal, who I'm a little higher on than most. I am worried I overrated them a touch. Wilcox, I just feel like no matter what happens, he just stays at that same spot. Did you know that Oregon State is favored in that game? Week 1, former Pac-12 team, RIP, coming to town. The California Golden Bears are 3-point dogs to the Oregon State Beavers in a 2-team conference. That's the world we live in. I think they're winning that game. I'm going Oregon State.
Is it the anti-Fernando Mendoza effect? But then you got to remember, Justin Wilcox is the same guy who pulled a Fernando Mendoza out of thin air. So, to your point, like Wilcox, all he does is win 6 to 7 to 8 games a year, regardless of who he's got. And like the recruiting isn't off the charts great, but it's also not bad enough that they can't just reload. So like, yeah, they're probably going to win 5, 6, 7 games next year. Should they be favored on the road against an Oregon State team that's better? Maybe not. Vegas doesn't think so.
Yeah, I'm supportive of Vegas there. Whenever he retires from coaching, can we put Justin Wilcox into the MLB Legendary Hall of Pretty Good?
Yeah, seriously.
Let's put him.
He's just the king of 500.
Yes, he's going to the Hall of Pretty Good. So that's game 1. Fresno State at home. I'm taking Oregon State there again. I do think that they'll run into 3 of their. I'm not going to say how many losses I'm giving them throughout the season. Their preseason win total is 6.5. I like the over. I think it's going to be 3 straight L's. This is a tough stretch for Oregon State. 2 of the 3 are on the road. They've got to go to Texas Tech, who's my top team in the Big 12. They've got to go to Oregon, who's going to be a Big 10 title contender again. They host Houston, who I really like in the Big 12 this year. Houston's the most likely game that they win in that stretch, right? Like, maybe they pull a stunner in Lubbock against Texas Tech. I can't quite get behind that.
No, I think the first 2, I don't know if Sharpie in as losses is the right word, but it's a step up from pencil. Like I'm probably at least using pen. I don't know if it's permanent marker.
Erasable pen.
Sure, we'll go with that. I'll erasable pen them in for 2 losses. And then I think I'm going to pencil in Houston as a win. But we're talking like, this is like 0.5 millimeter lead on the win there. I like Connor Wegman at Houston. I like Willie Fritz at Houston. I think it's one that it's one of those games that kind of your season hinges on. Like if Oregon State is to have one of those like, oh, we feel really good about how we did this season kind of seasons, that's the kind of game that you probably win. And if you lose it, then yeah, maybe you're around that 6 or 7 win mark that Vegas thinks you are. But that's the game that I don't want to call it stealing a win, but it's one that I think is on the fringes of a coin flip to maybe you're expected to lose it, that you really want to get to take your season to the next level. I don't think it's out of the out
No.
of the question that they could win it. But I do think what Houston has is going to be a lot better than they had last year, and sneakily very tough even at home.
Yeah, and by the way, Houston wasn't bad last year. They were 5-7. They should have been. I predicted them to go 2-10, and they just started winning some football games. So I do like Willie Fritz a good amount. But you mentioned that game. I want to take a 30,000-foot view real quick on this season for Oregon State. There's no conference championship to win, right? This is the last holding year before you have a conference again that you're going to go try and win starting in 2026. If you're Oregon State, I think you are measuring Trent Bray this season. That's the number one thing you're looking at. Everything that you could feel good about or bad about on a Saturday this year should be done so in the context of a long-term projection of we're going into a new conference that if we're run correctly as a program and we're starting to get more money coming in, that's how they got Malik Murphy, we should be a contender year in and year out, and in once every 5 to 7 years make a run for the college football playoff. You're looking this season at, is Trent Bray that guy? And with this schedule, as we're about to get to, you should be able to take a step forward and at least get to a bowl game this year. And I think if they can put 2 Power 4 wins on the resume this year, going to win at Oregon, which they haven't done since 2007. I think 7 was the last time. Certainly not expecting that. If you play 2 Big 12 and an ACC team, you find a way to go 2-1 in there. Oh my gosh, Beaver fans should be excited.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you get out of the first half of the season, if you extend it even to 6 games, because going to App State is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, and then Wake Forest, I get they're probably going to be down, but it's ACC caliber. If you go 6 games in, if Oregon State has a winning record through the first 6 games, I think you're feeling great because, not to look too far ahead, but if we're being honest with ourselves, Oregon State could go 6-0 in the second half of the season.
That's what I'm saying. And that's a perfect transition into the second half. I do think they win at App State. At that point, you've got a proven quarterback in Malik Murphy who will be well entrenched in the system. I think they, roster-wise, I have questions about the wide receiver room, but that's never been the foundation of what has made Oregon State successful. So it's not that it doesn't matter, but I think they can get by being average to below average there. At App State, Wake Forest, Lafayette, Washington State, Sam Houston at Tulsa. Those final 4 games in that stretch should be wins. I think they'll beat Washington State at home. I'm taking them to lose to the Cougs on the road. First-year coach, a lot of new players. I think they'll have figured it out more by the end of the season, which is an inverse of what Washington State has been. Tough to win on the road in Pullman. Tough to beat a team twice. But I think Oregon State fans have to just be patient in the middle, that there could be 3 straight losses when you go Texas Tech and Oregon on the road and Houston at home. You could lose all those games. But Carter, I think this is one of my favorite over bets of the season. 6.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. Give me the Beavs. 8-4, I think they go this year.
Well, I think if you like Oregon State more than you liked Washington State, you bet the over on this schedule, because 2 games against Washington State in the second half. If you like them better than the Cougs, you say they'd probably at least split, if not sweep, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're good enough to beat Wazoo, then they're certainly good enough to beat the CUSA and American teams are playing in the second half of the schedule. And you can Sharpie in Lafayette as a win. That's 5 wins. So all you need to get to the over is 2 wins in the front half of the season. And we just walked through that and we said 2 or 3 should be maybe not the expectation, but at least what you're hoping for. So yeah, if you think Oregon State's better than Washington State, you bet the over, because that's at least 1 win in a half of the season that you could get up to 6 wins right there.
This is not a playoff year for Oregon State. We could look back next season and say it was a playoff foundation year for the Beavs if things go according to plan. Carter Bain, CBS Sports. Beaver Blitz as well. Great as always. Let's jump over to the SEC. Do we buy Texas A&M? I mean, maybe. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Nobody likes that. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop. as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. That and so much more. They make the process great. I know. I've used them myself. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I don't know exactly what my nickname or moniker should be. Perhaps the wonderful world of the internet, you fine people out there listening to or watching this, can let me know what an appropriate designation is. But I think I'm really starting to brand myself as the guy who buys the teams that haven't done it yet. Because I am, of course, as I discussed yesterday, in on Texas Tech making the Big 12 championship game. I am picking Penn State, have picked Penn State to go 12-0 entering this season. And now I'm going to make it a trifecta. And I'm not doing this for a bit. This is just where it's shaking out in my head as I cover the sport and think about what these teams are going to be able to accomplish with the schedules they have in 2025. I like Texas A&M's schedule a lot. I also like Texas A&M's team. They're pretty darn good. Marcel Reed needs to be a better, more consistent passer. If that happens, don't be surprised when Texas A&M stays inside the top 20 for most of the year, flirts with a playoff berth potentially by the time the season comes to a close, and also, maybe, just maybe, pokes around at the idea of making an SEC championship game. I'm not picking them to get there. I'm not going crazy. I am going over their preseason win total of 7.5. And I only have one under so far that I've discussed on the show here in the SEC. That's Auburn. I like the Tigers under 7.5 wins this year. That's not the only under I will take. I am probably going to be the guy that fades Florida because I think they're a little overhyped. I think Ole Miss will be an under. That in due time, we'll get to them. But I'm starting things on an optimistic note. I am optimistic about Texas A&M. Pretty solid transfer portal class they brought in. Most notably, a name you just have to know, Casey Concepcion. I saw a video going around Twitter the other day, yesterday, as you're listening to or watching the show, if you're listening or watching the day it airs, and I saw John Mateer making an incredibly special throw to Deion Burks. Josh Pate tweeted about it, who was, of course, on the show recently, and I saw the throw. I watched it a couple times and thought, boy, be easy to overreact to that. How could you not? That's exciting. That's a combination. You know, Pate tweeted that combination was going to make him do irresponsible predictions with regards to Oklahoma. He might not be the only one, because if Mateer can make big-time throws, which he can't, he's got a big-time receiver out there on the perimeter that you remember maybe going into last year as a big-time transfer addition. It didn't go as planned. There were injuries involved. Deion Burks, one-time transfer from Purdue, can be a game wrecker. If he's got an actual quarterback who needs an actual offensive line and an actual offensive coordinator, just those things, then the Sooners could be a pretty good team. You're going to hear a lot about that tandem. I hope you hear about how important the tandem of Marcel Reed and Casey Concepcion is. So he comes over from NC State, where the flashes and glimpses that he showed over there as a member of the Wolfpack, impressive. Speed. You ever see The Longest Yard? I love The Longest Yard. Easily my favorite Adam Sandler movie. More than Happy Gilmore, more than Billy Madison. By the way, I thought Happy Gilmore 2 was just fine. The people saying it's the worst movie ever, just stop. There were some great jokes. There were some not great jokes. There were some okay jokes. It's exactly what I thought it would be. It's perfectly fine. The best Adam Sandler movie of all time is, without a doubt, The Longest Yard. There's a scene in there where the guards are pulling a Connor Stallions on the inmates' football team, and the person who is reporting to the head guard is talking about a running back, played by Nelly, the rapper, by the way. It's awesome. And when he asks him about him, he said, "Oh, he fast. He real fast. I mean, he's so fast. I mean, he make fast people look not fast." That's how I view Casey Concepcion. This guy is fast, and he is the sort of player that gives you one-play drives. If ever there was a receiver in the SEC to give you this opportunity, Ryan Williams is going to be number one on everybody's list. Casey Concepcion better not be outside of your top 5. Deion Burks can be that sort of dude, but if you let Casey Concepcion get a little bit of wiggle on your corner or your safety, and he gets a free release, good luck. Good luck. So that tandem needs to be really, really good for Mike Elko and the Aggies. So let's get to the actual schedule here. I've got them going 9-3 this year. Their preseason win total, according to our friends at FanDuel, is 7.5. They start with UTSA, Utah State, and then they go at Notre Dame. If you are an everydayer of this show, thank you for being that, by the way, you may remember that I've already picked this game. And I remember these things because I keep track of it on this big, giant spreadsheet. So they make sure I don't cross my wires picking games. But I continue to think Texas A&M is going to go to Notre Dame in week 3. Phenomenal game, by the way. Anybody who craps on Notre Dame's schedule, go look at it. They got games. They play Miami. They play Texas A&M. They got 5 other ACC opponents. They play USC. That's why I have no problem with Notre Dame being an independent and getting into the playoff. They play a legit schedule. And you know what? It's one of those weird, quirky traditions in college football we have that I'm just not that upset about. There are bigger fish to fry than Notre Dame joining a conference. Anyway, Texas A&M in a revenge game with a quarterback that's more experienced than what Notre Dame will have at the time, with a head coach I really like, will go get their revenge on the road at Notre Dame. I think they win, and the Texas A&M hype train will be off and running. It'll slow towards the end of the year, but they've got some tough road games. They just do. And they have to be able, if they want to take a major step forward from where they were at a season ago, if they want to be in that 9-10 win range, they're going to have to win some tough road games. They just are. They have to go at Notre Dame. They have to go at Arkansas, which is where Tennessee last year lost on their way to the college football playoff. They have to go at LSU, at Missouri, and at Texas. It's not an easy schedule. It really isn't. But in the middle, they've got this lovely little stretch where they play Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida. Following the big win against Notre Dame, Texas A&M will be rolling. And then a team who I really like and have power rated ahead of Texas A&M in my preseason rankings in the SEC, LSU, top-rated transfer portal class, Garrett Nussmeier. I am a big fan. I think all the love and attention, I like DJ Lagway. I really do. I really do. I like Garrett Nussmeier more. I just do. So Nussmeier is probably the most experienced quarterback in the SEC. I don't know that there's one that we'd care about. Diego Pavia would have to be in that fold, but I think we all like Nussmeier more than Pavia, who's solid. No disrespect. Pavia has done some amazing things in college football, and his legend will live forever on this particular program. But at LSU, I'll take that to be Texas A&M's first loss. Their second loss, I think they then go on the road and win at Missouri. I do. I am not that high in Missouri. I haven't been the last couple of years. They've benefited from a really easy schedule. They've been a good team. I'm not here to tell you they've been horrifically bad. Texas A&M beat their brains in last season. I don't think Missouri's done enough to close the gap. When you look at what Texas A&M has done this offseason, I think that they go to Columbia and win. Then another team from Columbia, that being South Carolina, of course, will go to College Station, and I'm sorry. I like the Gamecocks there. I think that's a good, competitive, go-either-way game, but I like Shane Beamer on game days. I'm a big Lenore Sellers fan. I love South Carolina's roster, and those quarterbacks could be very different at that point in the year in their third to last game of the regular season. They could be very different in that game than what they are in week 1 because they'll have gotten so much necessary experience under their belts. Those are a couple of incredibly dynamic playmakers behind center. I'll take South Carolina. Samford then, I, of course, think Texas A&M wins. And then they go at Texas. I love that rivalry is back so very much. Texas won on the road last year. Texas is at home. I like the Longhorns quite a bit, and I'm taking them to win in that particular spot. So that's one way I can see Texas A&M getting to 9-3. I think Mike Elko is a real good coach. I do think within the next 3 years, he'll make an SEC championship game, something Jimbo Fisher just flat out wasn't able to do. But Elko's got a top 10 recruiting class in the 2025 cycle, recruiting well again in 2026. They used the portal well. They came in and had a good first season. He's got one of the most underrated offensive coordinators in the country in Colin Klein. Yes, Kansas State legend Colin Klein. I like where Texas A&M is headed. I think they take a step forward this year. Interested to see what their schedule looks like next year. I don't think this one's a murderer's row. I don't think it's a cupcake schedule either. But overall, the Aggies are a program that if you took away the brand that everyone has these negative associations with, you'd say, oh, they're ripe to take a step forward. I believe in Texas A&M to an extent. But over 7.5, I do like that one. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.